Welcome to one of the world's great museums, the Hermitage in St. Petersburg, Russia. The museum collection began with Queen Catherine the Great in 1764, and it's been open to the public for the last 170 years. For people outside Russia, it isn't easy to get here. But even if you can, the vast majority of the museum's 3 million artifacts are off limits and known mainly to scholars, and the Jewish treasures of the museum have never been widely known. We'd like to invite you to join us for a rare tour and for a glimpse of Jewish history and culture as they appear in the treasures of the Hermitage. David, Michael, Shabtai. The names of Jews who lived and died long ago in the lands of the Russian Empire. And in one corner of a gallery at the Hermitage, among other ancient gravestones, here lies Miriam. This extraordinary gravestone, which most experts believe is about 1,500 years old, was found in southern Russia on the Black Sea coast in a place called Tmutarakan. The gravestone combines all the elements of a traditional Jewish gravestone known in Hebrew as a matzeva. The simple epitaph for Miriam is carved into a hollow section of the stone, with Jewish symbols carved beneath. The most important symbol here is a menorah, the ritual candelabra that was once used in the temple in Jerusalem. The menorah can be found not only on Jewish gravestones and in synagogues, but on Byzantine frescoes too. It came to symbolize Judaism itself. A shofar is a ram's horn. The shofar is blown during services on the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, on the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, and on a few other occasions in the Jewish calendar. The third symbol typically found on Jewish gravestones, and which on this one seems to have been chipped off and is no longer visible, is the lulav. That means a young frond of the date palm. The lulav is associated with the fall harvest festival of Sukkot, when Jews hold these fronds in their hands while reciting blessings. The Hebrew text on Miriam's gravestone was clearly carved by an experienced hand. It's easily legible today, almost 1,500 years later. Here we can see the fully developed version of the square Hebrew script, similar to the one in use today. The oldest existing Jewish cemetery in Eastern Europe is located in this same region, but 135 miles away from Miriam's grave at Tmutarakan, near the medieval fortress of Tmutarakan in the Crimean Mountains of Ukraine. The cemetery has been there at least since the second half of the 14th century. The gravestones here have a unique kind of epitaph. The introduction informs the reader that someone lies in this grave. Then the name of the deceased appears, accompanied by the date of death. Below, you find different blessings or eulogies. Carvers charged by the letter, so in most cases, the richer the family of the deceased, the longer the inscription. Like the gravestone here, which commemorates a woman identified as Our Holy Lady Chana of Jerusalem, the righteous, good, innocent, and generous, who always had the Torah of charity on her lips. The roots of the Jewish settlements in this area north of the Black Sea coast remain mysterious. One theory claims that Jews came here directly from Judea when it was part of the Roman Empire, before the Bar Kokhba revolt of the year 132 CE. In a slightly different version, the area was populated by Jews who fled from the wrath of the Roman Emperor Hadrian after that revolt. This population opposed not only the official Roman authorities, but also the new religion that was spreading at the time, Christianity. But there's a third theory, one put forward by a writer and collector named Abraham Firkovich, who belonged to the Jewish sect known as the Karaites. This theory says that Jews fled to this part of the world long before the Roman era, after the Assyrian captivity mentioned in the Bible. The same person, Abraham Firkovich, is also famous, or infamous, for turning the Jewish settlements of this region into the scene of one of the most notorious and successful historical forgeries of the 19th century. At the time, the Russian Empire was the country with the world's largest Jewish population. On the Crimean Peninsula, part of that population consisted of Karaite Jews, followers of a sect that originated in Baghdad about 1,000 years earlier. One of these Jews was Firkovich. Unlike the majority of Jews, the Karaites rejected the rabbinic writings and the oral law and followed only the written laws of the Torah. Their traditions and synagogues were different from those of other Jews, but they'd always seen themselves as Jews. Since the Jewish people faced growing discrimination from Russian authorities, however, the Karaites decided to prove that they were actually a different people. They claimed to adhere to pure Judaism, hoping this religion would not be stained in the eyes of the Christians by the supposed sins of rabbinic Judaism, like belief in the Talmud, which was said to be anti-Christian. More importantly, they denied any responsibility for the crucifixion of Christ. To prove that the Karaites had nothing to do with the crucifixion, they had to show that they hadn't been anywhere near Judea at the time in question, and that they'd been living in Crimea before the death of Christ. To this end, Firkovich began searching for ancient manuscripts and then modifying them, changing dates, adding Karaite names and locations. But manuscripts aren't tied to one place, and they can easily be moved. There was a better way to definitively prove that the Karaites had always been right here, and that was gravestones. Firkovich and his assistants spent years finding and falsifying gravestones on the Crimean Peninsula. He made up inscriptions and changed dates of death to make the gravestones seem older than they really were. He even discovered, or rather forged, the gravestone of the Jewish preacher Yitzhak Sangari, who, according to legend, had convinced the kingdom of the Khazars to convert to Judaism. By the 1860s, the Karaite campaign achieved its goal. Russian authorities separated them from the Jews and recognized them as a different community within the Russian Empire. Tsarist authorities freed them from the measures aimed at Jews, like double taxation, compulsory military service, and forced residence in the restricted zone known as the Pale of Settlement. Only recently, having analyzed the Jewish cemetery in Chufut-Kale and comparing dates on gravestones from here and elsewhere, have scholars been able to spot Firkovich's forgeries and tell them apart from real gravestones. One of the authentic gravestones is the one with which we started our visit, the one belonging to Miriam, a Jewish woman who lived in Tmutarakan about 1,500 years ago. We still know little about these people who lived and died in ancient towns near the Black Sea coast. We don't know exactly where they came from or how they disappeared, but we do know that they came long ago and stayed for centuries, and that, in a sense, they're still here, or traces of them, in the rooms of the Hermitage.